There's a moment before every meeting, before every conversation, before every decision, when your body chooses something for you. You walk into a room, you glance around, and without thinking, without weighing options, without consulting logic, your feet already know where to go. You pick a seat, and you tell yourself it was random, but it was not random. Nothing about where you sit is random. Where you place your body in a room is one of the most honest confessions your unconscious ever makes about who you are, what you fear, what you crave, and how you relate to power. Right now, in front of you, there is a long wooden table. At the head of that table sits a woman. She is calm, composed, dressed with quiet authority. Behind her, a whiteboard covered in graphs, notes, and a calendar tells you this is not a casual gathering. This is a place where decisions are made. Around that table, 9 empty chairs are waiting. Each one carries a different number. Each one occupies a different position in the room. And each one, though you may not realize it yet, corresponds to a different position inside you. Before you keep watching, before you keep thinking, before your logical mind starts calculating which chair looks safest or smartest or most impressive, I want you to do something simple. Look at the image. Let your eyes move across the table slowly. Notice which chair pulls you in first. Not the one you should choose. Not the one that sounds correct. The one that feels like yours. The one your body would walk toward if you entered this room in real life. Do not analyze. Do not reconsider. Just notice. Because the first chair your attention lands on is not a preference. It is a signal. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who spent his life mapping the hidden architecture of the human mind, believed that the unconscious does not speak in sentences. It speaks in symbols, in images, in choices we make before we know we are making them. A seat at a table is one of those symbols. Every culture, every century, every gathering of humans has understood this instinctively. Where you sit says something about how you see yourself in relation to others. It reveals how close you want to be to power, how visible you are willing to become, how much space you need, how much conflict you can tolerate, how much responsibility you are quietly ready to carry. Some people sit near the leader without ever asking why. Some people sit at the far end and never realize they are creating distance. Some people choose the middle without noticing that the middle is where they always place themselves in life. And some people face the leader directly, unconsciously preparing for a conversation they may not even know they need to have. Your seat is a mirror, not of your job title, not of your income, not of your reputation, but of the part of you that decides how you show up when no one is telling you where to stand. This test is not about being an extrovert or an introvert. It is not about being confident or shy. It is about something deeper. It is about the relationship between you and authority, between you and visibility, between you and the group, between you and yourself. And the reason this test works is because it bypasses the part of your brain that likes to perform. When you choose a chair quickly, before you think, you are answering as your true self, not as the version of yourself you show at work or at family dinners or in front of people you want to impress. So take a breath. Look again at the table. Notice the woman at the head. Notice the light. Notice the empty chairs. Feel which one is calling you. And once you have chosen, hold that number in your mind. Do not change it. Do not second guess it. Because in the next moments, we are going to walk through what your chair reveals about your personality, your patterns, your hidden strengths, and the parts of yourself you have been quietly avoiding. Some of what you hear may feel like recognition. Some of it may feel uncomfortable. Both reactions are meaningful. Self-knowledge rarely arrives without a little resistance. But if you stay with me until the end, you will not only understand your chair, you will understand something about the way you move through every room you enter for the rest of your life. And now, with your chair chosen, let us begin with the first seat, the one directly to the left of the leader. If the first chair is the one that pulled you in, the seat placed immediately to the left of the woman at the head of the table, then something very specific is true about the way you move through the world. You are drawn to closeness with power, but not to power itself. You want to be near the center of decision-making, near the person who carries the weight of leading, but you do not necessarily want that weight on your own shoulders. And this is not weakness. This is a very particular kind of strength that most people misunderstand. People who choose this chair often become the quiet backbone of every group they enter. You are the one the leader trusts without needing to explain why. You are the one who hears things others do not hear because you're close enough to catch the words spoken in half whispers, close enough to notice the shift in someone's expression before the room realizes anything has changed. You do not seek visibility, but you accumulate influence. You do not fight for a title, but people slowly begin to rely on you as if you had won. From a Jungian perspective, this chair reflects a strong relationship with loyalty and belonging. You feel most alive when you are part of something meaningful. You value trust the way other people value ambition. When you commit to a person, a project, a family, a mission, you commit deeply and quietly, and you rarely need public recognition to feel that your contribution matters. This is rare. In a world where most people crave applause, you crave connection. But this chair also reveals a challenge that hides beneath the loyalty. Because you find safety in proximity to the leader, in proximity to a stable figure. You may sometimes shrink your own voice to preserve harmony. You may hold back opinions that deserve to be spoken. You may protect the peace at the cost of your own truth. You may stay in situations, jobs, relationships, families, longer than you should because leaving feels like abandoning someone who trusts you. There's honor in loyalty, but loyalty without honesty slowly becomes a cage. Your growth does not come from becoming louder or more confrontational. Your growth comes from remembering that closeness to someone does not require the erasure of yourself. You can support a leader and still disagree. You can love someone and still tell them a truth they do not want to hear. You can be part of a group and still be fully, completely yourself. If this chair chose you, ask this question. Where in your life have you been sitting quietly beside someone, holding a truth you have not yet spoken? And what would happen if, just once, you allowed your voice to occupy as much space as your loyalty already does? Your presence is already trusted. Your voice deserves to be trusted too. If your eyes went to the second chair, the one a step further from the leader, but still on the same side of the table, then you carry an energy that most groups depend on far more than they realize. You are the connector, the one who keeps things running, the one who notices when someone has gone quiet, when a mood in the room has shifted, when a small problem is about to become a large one. You do not sit at the head of the table, and you do not want to, but without people like you, the head of the table would not function. People drawn to this chair are often naturally sociable, warm, and helpful, but there is something more sophisticated happening beneath that friendliness. You are constantly reading the room. You are constantly measuring emotional temperature. You know who is upset before they say a word. You know which two people in the group are quietly in conflict, even if no one has told you. You know when a joke will land and when it will hurt. This is not manipulation. This is emotional intelligence at a level most people do not even recognize as a skill. From a Jungian perspective, this chair connects to what might be called the mediator archetype. You are the bridge between people. You translate between personalities. You soften edges. You bring together the loud and the quiet, the ambitious and the cautious, the leader and the group. Without you, tension would harden. With you, tension has somewhere to go. In organizations, in families, in friendships, in communities, you are the glue. But glue is a strange thing to be, because glue holds everything together while itself remaining invisible. People who choose this chair often struggle with a very specific and very quiet form of exhaustion. You give and give and give, and then wonder why you feel empty. You listen to everyone's problems and rarely find someone who listens to yours in return. You maintain everyone else's peace while your own inner peace slowly erodes. You've been trained, sometimes since childhood, to be the helpful one, the reliable one, the easygoing one, the one who does not cause trouble. And you have worn this role so long that you've begun to confuse it with your identity. But your identity is deeper than your usefulness. You are not valuable because you help. You are valuable because you exist. And there's a version of you underneath the mediator, underneath the fixer, underneath the peacekeeper that has needs, opinions, desires, and boundaries of its own. This chair invites you to a specific question. Where in your life are you being agreeable when you should be honest? Where are you smoothing things over when you should be letting them break? So something truer can be built in their place. Your kindness is real, but kindness that erases you is not kindness anymore. It is self-abandonment wearing a smile. Growth for you does not mean becoming cold or difficult. It means learning that you are allowed to take up as much space as the people you care for. If the third chair caught your attention, the one further along the table, still on the same side, but noticeably more distant from the leader, then you belong to a group of people who are often underestimated. You are the analyzer, the observer, the thinker who watches before acting. You are not shy, but you are careful. You are not disengaged, but you are selective about when to engage. You want to be part of what is happening, but only after you understand what is truly happening. Snap decisions are not your language. Depth is. People drawn to this chair often spend their whole lives being told they are too quiet, too reserved, too slow to speak up. But this label misses what is actually happening inside you. You are not slow. You are thorough. You are not passive. You are processing. While others are reacting, you are noticing. While others are speaking, you are listening for what is underneath the words. While others are forming opinions in the first 3 seconds of conversation, you are gathering information that will lead you to a much more accurate conclusion an hour later. From a Jungian perspective, this chair reflects a strong presence of the inner observer, the part of the psyche that reflects rather than reacts. Your intelligence is not performative. It reveals itself slowly, in the quality of your questions, in the precision of your insights, in the way you can summarize in 1 sentence what others have failed to articulate in 10. When you finally speak, people listen, because you rarely waste words. But this chair also carries a shadow you may know intimately. Because you wait until you understand fully, you sometimes wait too long. Opportunities pass. Conversations move on. Chances to shape the direction of a project, a relationship, a life, slip away while you were still gathering data. Certainty is a beautiful thing to chase, but life rarely rewards those who wait for it. Life rewards those who act with enough clarity, not perfect clarity. And here is another quiet truth. Sometimes your desire to understand fully is not really about understanding. It is about safety. It is about protecting yourself from being wrong, from being visible, from being judged. Analysis can become a very sophisticated form of hiding. If this chair chose you, ask yourself this. Where in your life are you waiting to understand something before you act? When the truth is that you will only understand it by acting. Your mind is a gift, but a mind that never leaves a seat of analysis eventually becomes a prison. You are allowed to speak before you are certain. You are allowed to move before you have all the answers. And often, that is exactly how the deepest understanding arrives. If the fourth chair is where your eyes settled, the one at the far end of the same side, near the corner of the table, then you belong to a rare type of person who understands something most people never learn. You understand the value of distance. Not distance as coldness, not distance as avoidance, but distance as clarity. You know that you cannot see a painting clearly with your face pressed against it. You need to step back. You need perspective. You need your own space to think, to breathe, to become fully yourself. And so, wherever you go, you unconsciously position yourself where you can see the whole scene rather than be pulled into its center. People drawn to this chair are often calm, attentive, and quietly organized. You have a rich inner life that most people around you never suspect. On the outside, you may seem reserved or even a little detached. But on the inside, there is a whole world of thoughts, observations, plans, and reflections moving with quiet precision. You are not disconnected. You are protected. There is a difference. From a Jungian perspective, this chair reflects the introverted, intuitive nature. You are less interested in the immediate noise of a moment and more interested in patterns, in trajectories, in the deeper shape of what is unfolding. You often sense where things are going long before others do. You notice when a project is quietly heading toward failure, while everyone else is still celebrating early wins. You notice when a friendship has changed even though nothing has technically been said. You notice when your own life needs a shift, even if you cannot yet name what shift is needed. But this chair also carries a specific challenge. Your need for space, though healthy, can slowly turn into a habit of withdrawal. The same distance that gives you clarity can also isolate you from the very people who would love to know you more deeply. You may tell yourself you are fine on your own, and much of the time you are. But there is a difference between solitude that nourishes and solitude that hides. There are moments when the world is actually asking you to step closer, to be seen, to participate, and something in you retreats instead, not out of fear exactly, but out of habit, out of the long practiced comfort of watching life rather than entering it. If this chair chose you, ask this question. Where in your life is your distance protecting you, and where is it costing you? Because perspective is a gift, but perspective is meant to inform action, not replace it. You are allowed to step out of the corner. You are allowed to move closer to the center. You are allowed to bring your quiet, thoughtful presence into rooms that desperately need it. The world does not only need loud leaders. The world needs observers who eventually decide to participate. If your attention landed on the fifth chair, the one directly the opposite of the table, facing the leader across the entire length of the room, then you carry an energy that is impossible to ignore, even when you're trying to be quiet. You are direct. You are honest. You are unafraid of disagreement. You do not choose this seat because you want to fight. You choose it because you want to see and be seen clearly. You want to look the person in charge in the eye. You want the conversation to be real. You want the truth to be spoken, even when the truth is uncomfortable. People drawn to this chair often become the ones who ask the question no one else is willing to ask. In every group, there is a moment when someone has to say the thing everyone is thinking, but no one wants to voice. That someone is often you, and this quality is both your gift and your burden. From a Jungian perspective, this chair reflects a powerful relationship with the warrior archetype, not warrior in the sense of aggression, but warrior in the sense of clarity. You do not hide. You do not soften your truth to make others comfortable. You do not pretend to agree when you disagree. You believe, whether you've ever put it into words or not, that a relationship, a team, a family, a life built on comfortable lies is a life not worth living. You would rather have a difficult conversation than a false peace. Others may call you intense. They may call you challenging. They may call you too much. But those who understand you, and there will always be some who do, recognize that your directness is actually a form of respect. When you challenge someone, you are treating them as capable of handling truth. That is one of the highest forms of respect a person can offer. But this chair also carries a shadow you must be honest with. Sometimes what feels like clarity is actually confrontation. Sometimes what feels like honesty is actually a way of controlling the conversation, of asserting dominance, of protecting yourself from being seen as weak. There's a version of directness that opens people up, and there is a version that shuts them down. The difference is not in the words. It is in what you are trying to accomplish beneath the words. If this chair chose you, ask yourself this. When you speak your truth, are you trying to connect or are you trying to win? Because the strongest people in the world are not the ones who dominate the room. They are the ones who can be direct and warm at the same time, fierce and gentle, uncompromising and kind. Your power is real, but power without warmth eventually isolates you from the very people you were trying to reach. If your eyes were drawn to the sixth chair, the one on the far side of the table, halfway between the leader and the person facing her, then you belong to a group of people who understand something delicate. You understand the art of participation without provocation. You want to be involved. You want your voice to count. But you have learned, sometimes through painful experience, that not every truth needs to be delivered like a hammer. Some truths are better spoken like a question. Some observations are better shared as a wondering rather than a declaration. People drawn to this chair are often the ones who ask exactly the right question at exactly the right moment. You do not dominate the conversation, but you shape it. You do not push, but you redirect. You do not confront, but you invite reconsideration. In every group, there is a person whose contribution seems small in the moment, but changes the entire outcome by the end. That is often you. From a Jungian perspective, this chair reflects a strong relationship with what might be called a diplomat archetype. You understand power without needing to hold it. You understand influence without needing to demand it. You have an intuitive grasp of when to speak and when to wait, when to press and when to release, when to agree and when to gently disagree in a way that leaves everyone's dignity intact. This is not performance. This is emotional wisdom. But this chair also reveals a challenge that hides in plain sight. Because you are so skilled at avoiding tension, you sometimes avoid necessary conflict. Because you are so good at choosing your words carefully, You sometimes choose them so carefully that the truth becomes soft enough to ignore. Your gift is nuance, but nuance can become evasion if you are not paying attention. There are moments in life when a situation does not need diplomacy. It needs directness. It needs someone to say plainly what needs to be said. And in those moments, your habit of softening can leave the truth unspoken and the situation unchanged. If this chair chose you, ask this question. Where in your life have your carefully chosen words become a way of never fully saying what you mean? Where has your gift for peace become a way of postponing a truth that will not stay postponed forever? You do not have to become harsh to become honest. You do not have to abandon your kindness to gain your voice. But you do have to trust that the people around you can handle your real thoughts, not just a polished version. Because eventually, if you never let the truth land, you become invisible even to yourself. If the seventh chair called to you, the one on the far side of the table, close to the plant and slightly nearer to the leader, then you carry a personality that most people misjudge at first meeting. You seem calm. You seem easygoing. You seem flexible. And you are all of these things. But underneath that flexibility is something much stronger than people realize. You are calm because you have thought things through. You are easygoing because you have decided what truly matters to you and what is not. You are flexible because you know the difference between the things worth defending and the things not worth the energy. People drawn to this chair are often prudent in a way that goes far beyond simple caution. You watch before you act. You listen before you speak. You commit slowly and deliberately. But once you commit fully. You are not the person who jumps into every new opportunity, every new relationship, every new idea. But you are the person who, once involved, stays involved with a depth and consistency that others rarely match. From a Jungian perspective, this chair reflects a relationship with the sage archetype, not sage in the sense of age, but sage in the sense of measured wisdom. You are the person people turn to when they need advice they can trust, not because you know everything, but because you do not pretend to. You are careful with your words, careful with your judgments, careful with your influence, and that carefulness gives your voice weight when you finally do speak. But this chair also reveals a shadow you may recognize. Your carefulness, taken too far, becomes hesitation. Your patience, taken too far, becomes procrastination. Your desire to fully assess a situation before acting can, if you are not paying attention, become a way of never acting at all. There are seasons of life when careful assessment is exactly what is needed, and there are seasons when the only way forward is to move before you are ready. Your task is to learn the difference. If this chair chose you, ask yourself this. Where in your life are you waiting to feel ready, when readiness will only come after you have taken the first step? Where are you assessing when you should be acting? Your wisdom is real, but wisdom without action becomes a beautifully organized library that no one ever visits. You are allowed to move before you are certain. You are allowed to commit before you have every answer. And often, the most important commitment in life are the ones you make with your careful mind and your uncertain heart at the same time. If the eighth chair drew your attention, the one further along the far side, closer to the door than to the leader, then you belong to a group of people who understand the quiet power of not being noticed. You do not want the spotlight. You do not want to be the center of attention. You do not want to be the one whose every word is analyzed by the group. You want to think. You want to observe. You want to exist in a room without having to perform in it, and in a world that constantly rewards visibility. Your choice is quietly revolutionary. People drawn to this chair are often introspective, logical, and deeply self-contained. You have a rich inner world, but you do not feel a need to broadcast it. You have opinions, but you share them selectively. You have insights, but you offer them only when they are asked for or when they are truly necessary. Some people mistake this for disengagement. It is not. You are deeply engaged, just not visibly so. You are processing everything, just not out loud. From a Jungian perspective, this chair reflects a strong, introverted thinking nature. Your mind is precise. Your logic is careful. You prefer clarity over drama, understanding over reaction, principles over impulses. You are not swayed easily by group emotion, and this makes you a valuable presence in situations where everyone else is losing perspective. When the room is chaotic, You are the one who quietly finds a pattern. When the room is emotional, you are the one who quietly finds a truth. But this chair also carries a challenge you may know well. Your preference for staying out of the spotlight can slowly become a preference for staying out of your own life. Your avoidance of unnecessary conflict can slowly become an avoidance of necessary conflict. Your desire to be left alone with your thoughts can slowly become a habit of leaving yourself alone even when you need connection. There is a difference between solitude that recharges and solitude that isolates, and only you can tell which one you are living. If this chair chose you, ask yourself this: where in your life are you choosing invisibility because it is comfortable when what you actually need is to be seen? Where are you avoiding conflict when what you actually need is to have a conversation? Your inner world is beautiful. Your logic is sharp. Your presence is meaningful, even when it is quiet. But at some point, the world needs to hear what you've been thinking all this time. You do not have to become loud. You just have to become willing. Willing to be seen. Willing to be heard. Willing to take up a little more space than you're used to. And if the ninth chair is the one that pulled you in, the seat to the right of the leader, then you carry a very specific kind of intelligence that most people do not understand until they have watched you work. You are close to power, but not consumed by it. You are near the decision-making center, but not desperate for its recognition. You watch. You learn. You understand the dynamics of a room the way a good chess player understands the board. You know when to speak, when to wait, when to move, when to stay still. And you make it all look effortless. People drawn to this chair are often strategic in a way that is neither cold nor calculating, but deeply thoughtful. You see the invisible currents in a group. You notice who influences whom. You notice which alliances are stable and which are performative. You notice which conversations matter and which are just noise. And you position yourself, consciously or unconsciously, in the exact place where you can observe the most while being observed the least. From a Jungian perspective, this chair reflects a strong relationship with the strategist archetype. You understand power not as domination, but as awareness. You understand that the loudest person in the room is rarely the most influential. You understand that real influence often flows through those who listen more than they speak, who ask more than they announce, who position more than they perform. You are patient with your ambitions. You are precise with your energy. You do not waste yourself on battles that do not matter. But this chair also reveals a shadow that only you will recognize honestly. Because you are so skilled at reading dynamics, you sometimes forget to fully participate in them. You watch the game so carefully that you never quite let yourself play. You strategize about relationships instead of simply being in them. You position yourself in life instead of actually living it. There's a difference between being wise and being detached, and it is a difference you must feel out for yourself. If this chair chose you, ask this question: where in your life have you been strategic when you needed to be vulnerable? Where have you been reading the room when you needed to be present in it? Where have you been calculating your next move when the deepest move available to you was to simply show up as yourself, without a plan? Your intelligence is a gift, but intelligence without heart eventually becomes loneliness dressed as competence. You are allowed to sit near power without needing to manage it. You are allowed to be in the room without strategizing about it. You are allowed to trust that you belong at the table not because you position yourself well, but because you are inherently worth having there. Now that you have heard what your chair reveals, there is one more truth that must be spoken, because it is the truth this entire test was built around. Your chair is not your identity. Your chair is your current position. It is a snapshot, not a sentence. It is a mirror where you are standing right now in relation to power, visibility, safety, and self-expression. But it is not a fixed description of who you are or who you must be. A year from now, in a different season of your life, you might walk into the same room and find yourself drawn to a completely different chair. And that shift, when it happens, will not be random either. It will be your unconscious telling you that something inside you has changed. Because the truth is, every person carries all 9 chairs inside them. The loyal one who sits beside the leader. The connector who softens a room. The analyzer who watches quietly. The observer at the corner who sees the whole picture. The direct one who faces power head-on. The diplomat who chooses words carefully. The sage who moves with measured wisdom. The introspective one who prefers depth over display. The strategist who reads every dynamic in the room. All of them live in you. But at any given moment in your life, one of them is dominant. One of them is running the show. And the chair that called to you today is the one currently in charge. Jung called this process of understanding yourself individuation, the slow, honest work of meeting every part of who you are, not just the parts that are convenient, not just the parts that are impressive, but all of them. The confident part and the uncertain part, the loud part and the quiet part, the part that wants to be seen, and the part that wants to disappear. Growth is not becoming a different person. Growth is becoming a more complete one. So take a moment. Think about your chair. Notice what it revealed. Notice what felt true. And notice what felt uncomfortable. Because both are information. Notice which of the other chairs you've been avoiding. And ask yourself why. Because often, the chair we would never choose is the one that holds the lesson we most need to learn. If you have made it this far, all the way to this final moment, you are not the average viewer. You are not the person who scrolls past reflection to reach the next distraction. You are the 1% who actually wants to understand yourself. You are the rare kind of person who is willing to sit with a question long enough to hear its answer. And that quality, that willingness to look inward when the rest of the world is looking away, is the beginning of every real transformation. So if this reached something in you, share your chair number in the comments below. Tell me which seat pulled you in. Read the chairs of others, and notice which ones remind you of the people in your life. And if you want more reflections like this, more mirrors that help you meet the parts of yourself you have been quietly carrying, follow along. Comment, I'm part of the 1%. So I know you made it all the way to the end. Because the chair you chose today may only be a temporary seat. But the willingness to look at yourself honestly, that is a seat you get to keep for the rest of your life.